Hello, hello, hello. Good morning. I am very happy. I'm excited for another one. I'm currently traveling, working remotely, and I'm in Austin, Texas, of all places. Before that, I was in California. Before that, Arizona. And before that, South Africa, which maybe I can talk a little bit about. But I decided Austin, Texas for a few reasons. I work in tech. I work in what they call MarTech, also RegTech, because I work with banks. Um, Essentially, and it's really interesting, I think. I help build multivariate experiments for banks, and I specialize in optimizing language to pretty much drive certain KPIs, conversions, impressions, clicks, whatever the primary KPI is at the time for certain banks. And so I was reading that Austin, Texas has sort of a tech scene, and so far, I've been here for a few weeks. It's more modern, more metropolitan. I'm just I would say, about a mile away from UT as well. So lots of young people. It's been a really cool experience. I'm also near this creek called Shoal Creek, and I love nature, so it's been nice to have, I guess, a little bit of, the best of both worlds. And okay, I know that I can be a little sporadic when it comes to these conversations because there's a million and one things happening in my mind. But really, my goal here is to attract like minded individuals. I am a dreamer. I love thinking up ideas. I love thinking about the most grand form of existence possible and going for it. That's what I'm all about. I come from a small town in Arizona, and I think when I was in high school, I started to wonder what else is there that I can experience? Where can I go? Where can I just maybe expose myself to something that my town doesn't have to offer? And I think it's important to mention that at one point I was religious. I am no more, but I decided to join I would say it was sort of a Christian mission program, and um, unbeknownst to myself, it was the first opportunity that I had to travel abroad. Before that, I had never traveled abroad, only Mexico, I think that counts. But living in Arizona, we would go on road trips to Mexico, but that was it. So I ended up going to China, of all places, and I stayed there for a few months. And I was in Xi'an. If you look up Xi'an, you will probably see the terracotta warriors. I believe, if I remember my history right, in the early 70s, a farmer was digging and doing some work in the fields, and as he was digging, I don't know what tool he was using, but he hit something hard, and it revealed a broken terracotta. And so he discovered that it seemed to look like a soldier of some sort, some kind of warrior, something ancient, obviously. And so the Chinese government showed up on the scene, and they began to excavate, and they found the terracotta warriors, which was an amazing thing to see in person. But I say this to say that ever since traveling to China, I was changed. I remember I actually experienced reverse culture shock. And when I came back to my hometown, Gilbert, Arizona, it was different. I was changed. And since then, I've tried to travel as often as possible. And I haven't necessarily been able to travel as much as I would like because I haven't really had the location freedom that's required to travel a lot. I was in university, and I had jobs that required my physical presence, but no more. I now working in tech, I'm fully remote, and I'm out and about and exploring. I'm going to Houston, Texas next. And then after that, there's a few places in mind. Chicago is a place that I would love to visit. Also, New York City is a place that I love personally, and I feel like it's in line with how I am feeling lately. I'm very fast paced, I'm very excited, I'm very optimistic. So two things that I want to cover now that I got that long introduction out of the way. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. Andrew Huberman says that the trifecta to optimize your energy in the morning. It's 7:30 here in Austin, but the trifecta is caffeine, sunshine. I'm getting some sunshine here, and exercise, but not high intensity. So about 30 minutes of a nice workout, maybe a brisk walk. So I'm optimizing my energy here. Okay, so two things I want to cover. Last night, I was inspired by a video that I was listening to, and maybe I'll save this for the very end. So if you are excited about how you can essentially dominate the marketplace no matter what you do, and if you want more money, I would say stick around, and I will have a conversation about I think sort of a universal truth that is required in order to attain those things. If you want to dominate the marketplace, and if you want to generate wealth and attract money, you need this thing. Okay, so keep that in mind, pin it. But I'm very excited to share this with you. So years ago, when I started traveling, a friend of mine encouraged me to start a travel journal. And he said to, write about your experiences so that way you can look back on them one day and basically relive it. And so I started doing that, and eventually it just became sort of a daily journal. And I've been writing in this journal for years because I sort of just write when I feel the need. And so I wanted to maybe just pick one or two entries, because I started writing in this November 11, 2023. And my last entry, which was, just yesterday, was January 14, 2026. So, 3 years there. So I'm just gonna go ahead and do a random roulette selection, and maybe we can find some cool things here. But I highly recommend you doing something like this, especially if you feel like you need to get things off your chest. It's really helped me just reflect and just kind of let go of the weight. I tend to carry a lot of things. I'm always thinking, I'm always worrying. So I feel like I can take a deep breath after I sit in the quiet and just write something out. And typically it's just one page. So let's see. All right, April 10. I don't know which year, but this is earlier in the book or journal, so it must have been a couple years ago. How I want to see myself: honest, genuine, positive, adventurous, generous, curious, intentional, fun, focused, driven, brave, excellent, and the list goes on. This is my new self-image. I'm going to read it often to realize these characteristics sooner than later. I am these things, and I will embody them every single day. I will become my best self. I kid you not, this was random. So, wow, okay. This is a really good topic, I think, because I believe no matter where you are in life, no matter how much money you have in your bank account, no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, you have the ability to pursue the best version of you. Period. You can be your best self today. And I really think, and I truly believe, that it is a daily pursuit. I'm not my best self because of the days prior, and so I can just sit here and just be my best self. It doesn't work like that. Today, I have to be my best self. Today, I woke up at 6 a.m. and I cleaned, I made coffee, and I reflected, I listened to music, and I prepared for this video. I am trying to be the best version of myself, and whatever that looks like for you, you need to really close your eyes and think about a few of those characteristics. I had mentioned hardworking, professional, rich, healthy, humble. You need to put it down on paper. Write 2 or 3 characteristics, 50 characteristics. I don't care. It doesn't matter. Write it out, read it over and over again, and practice it every single day. All right, one more. Okay, this one's cool. This was my first entry in 2025, so about a year ago. It says 2025 is here. I made it another year. I'm alive and so grateful. I know death is promised in this life, but I'm determined to live my life to the fullest without regret, without hesitation. I want to have a striking life. Not for anyone else, only myself. Let's see, I'll fast forward a little bit. I'm ready to be relentless. I will never lay down over my dead body. This is me like in the zone, just feeling it, just letting the universe know that no matter what you throw at me. And it's funny, yesterday I was talking to someone, and they were they had made reference to like reaching the deepest, darkest depths of hell. And I told them, I said, I'm the type of person, you throw me in the worst place, the deepest, darkest place, area, spot, like it doesn't matter. I will get out. I will find a way. And I love that relentless energy. I want it more than anything else. I will launch Score Marketer this month. I will acquire my first client and start building. So Score Marketer is It's interesting. Going to be honest, in addition to the work that I do, I am very entrepreneurial. I'm an entrepreneur at heart, and I've been really thinking about different ways to use the skills and knowledge and experience that I have to build solutions and to sell those solutions to a niche audience. And so, Score Marketer, um, a year ago, I was really thinking about a way to streamline um, online growth marketing for small businesses. And so I won't really get into the details, but um, for a year, I really worked on it. I have been learning as much as I can about growth marketing, um, business automations. Recently, I've been learning about generative AI and agentic AI, and also I'm exploring chatbots because I am possibly, I think most likely going to be building a version of a chatbot to sort of automate business operations for, I won't say who, but that is coming soon. Okay, so now that that's over, now that we've got all caught up, and I've kind of shown you what happens in my journal. By the way, this is the new journal that I started today. This was a gift from a very special person. But so when I was in South Africa, clearly Nelson Mandela is an icon, a historical figure, and I'm a history buff, and I loved being able to learn about the apartheid system and everything that followed, and how revolutionary Nelson Mandela was to South Africa and also to the world in terms of freedom and fighting racism and fighting these racist systems that still exist today. But he says here, sometimes it falls upon a generation to be great. You can be that great generation. Mandela. All right. So, as promised, I said earlier on that I would share more about marketplace domination and how you can make more money. But I want to first have some coffee here. I'm a coffee lover. I love coffee. Um, I won't go into my coffee rant, but I love coffee. Okay. Important to mention here that if you truly want to be wealthy, I'm reminded of a moment with Bob Marley, and the guy asks, I'm sure you've seen this interview, but he says, "Are you rich?" Bob Marley, "Are you rich?" And he says, "What do you mean, Bob? What do you mean?" And the guy says, "Do you have a lot of money?" And he says, "Money." It's almost like he's caught off guard, and he thinks, "Well, money is that what you think makes you rich?" And he says, "My riches are life." And I think when you don't have money, you really want money, and you think, if I could just get like just this amount of money, I will be so happy. But they actually did a study, and they found that across so many different levels financially, whether you make 50,000 a year or 150 or 5 million, usually when you ask that person how much money do you need or want, they always want a little bit more. So I want to say this before I get into this talk about how to attract more money, because if you truly want to attract money, You have to make it not about the money. Now, I know that that sounds counterintuitive, but it's not about the money. Let me say that again. All of these get rich schemes that you see online, invest in this, buy this, buy my course, you know, invest in this stock. Sure, you can get lucky. People get lucky. I have a family member, she goes to the casino often and usually either ends up even or loses a little bit of money, and one day she suddenly won $10,000 cash. I remember she walked in and she's holding cash. She's so happy. You can get lucky, sure, but don't count on it. And I think if you want money, you have to first invest in yourself, which gets to the key ingredient that's required to attract abundance, which is value. You need to offer more value than anyone else, period. If you can offer more value than anyone else, and I really want you to think about this. Think about what you do. How do you spend your time? What product or service do you offer to the marketplace? What is it? Really think about that deeply, because when you have found the answer, when you know what you offer, now you need to figure out, okay, well, what value does that add to the customer, to my buyers? How valuable is this to my buyers? And how can I make this more valuable? How can I add more value? How can I make it a no questions asked purchase? Now, I'm trying to think of some no questions asked purchases. I really like to dive into the psychology of like everyday consumer culture. And if you think about it, you have your coffee drinkers. Coffee is a huge business, and people are convinced that it's essential, that they need it. I don't need it, but if you go to any local cafe, any Starbucks, any Dutch Bros, you will see a line. And that's because the value that it adds for people is pretty high up there. So the more value you add, the more you will have the ability to dominate the marketplace. In the US, and I think pretty much anywhere in the world, we're all in competition. Everyone's fighting for power and attention and views and impressions and all this stuff, all these things we use to measure success. That is what I mean by marketplace domination. You need to add as much value as possible in order to dominate the marketplace and attract your customers. That way you can sell more of your product and service, which will attract the money. Once, when I was very young, I was probably 19, 20 years old. I had just moved to San Diego, and I was living in a 2-bedroom condo with my mother and my brother and my stepfather. And I had a neighbor, Juan. I remember him. Juan was a graphic designer, and he lived alone, and I really admired him because he just seemed cool. He had a creative job, and I remember one time he told me, Ray, and he sort of took me on as a mentee of his. He said, don't worry about the money. The money will come. And what he was really saying is you need to learn, craft yourself, craft your skills. And become an artist, or become a professional. There's a clip where Kevin Durant, I used to listen to this motivational video, and Kevin Durant would say, I'm a true professional. Day in and day out, I wake up and I take my shots, and I practice, and I really put a lot of work into my game. I'm a true professional. You need to be a true professional. So, thanks for making it this long. If you are still here, I really appreciate it. This YouTube game, it's a new pursuit for me. I'm new to it. I'm trying my best to articulate myself and to really add value to you. So, thank you, and until next time.